Okay, today we're going to be writing the equation of a line. So remember we talked about a line means that you have a linear equation. Okay, so the standard linear form is on your formula chart, ax plus by equals c. Notice that it says where a is positive. So a has to be a positive if you're putting it in the standard form. It also has to be an integer, which means it has to be a whole number. So it has to be positive and it has to be a whole number in order for your form to be correct, okay, in standard form. Slope-intercept form, remember we talked about it's y equals mx plus b, where m will represent your slope, and then your b will represent your y-intercept. Okay, so we're going to write the equation of each line using the given information. So the first two examples, we have a graph. Anytime you have a graph and you're asked to find the line or the equation of the line, you are going to need to find the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so on number one, we're going to put it in slope-intercept form. So no matter what form you're putting it in, you have to find the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, when you're finding the slope, you can pick any point on the line. So I'll just choose this one here, and then you're going to go to the next point. Remember, slope is rise over run, so you need to go up or down first, and then left or right. Okay, so I'm starting with this point. I'm going to the next one. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, and then to the left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we go up 2, that means it's going to be positive. The left 5 means it's going to be negative. So your slope would be a negative 2/5. Okay. B is your y-intercept. So here's your y-axis. It crosses the y at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So since we know m and b, and we're putting it in slope-intercept form, we're just going to plug that into y equals mx plus b. So y equals negative 2 x plus 7. There's your slope-intercept form. Okay, so number 2, we're given a graph. So it doesn't matter what form you're putting it in, you have to find the slope and the y-intercept of the graph in order to get it in any form. Okay, so this one, notice it's in the standard. So ax plus by equals c. So we're going to find the slope and the y-intercept. So pick a point on your graph. I'll choose this one. I'm going to go to the next point. So I'm having to go up 3 and right 1. So that would be positive 3 over 1, which equals 3. So our slope would be 3 there. B is our y-intercept. It crosses the y at 1, 2, 3, negative 4. Okay, so no matter if we're putting it in slope or slope-intercept form or standard form, we're going to have to plug it into slope-intercept form from a graph. Okay, so I'm going to start with y equals 3x minus 4. So I'm putting it in that slope-intercept form. Now we'll change it to standard. Notice in standard, your x and your y are on the same side of the equation. So that's what we will need to do with this equation here. So I'm going to subtract 3x. So negative 3x plus y equals negative 4. And then notice that a, anytime you're in standard, pay close attention to a, which is the coefficient of x. It has to be a positive and it has to be a whole number. Notice it's a negative and a whole number. So the only thing that we need to change is that negative. So I'm going to multiply the entire equation by a negative. Just a negative 1. So basically all you're doing is you're changing the sign of every term on your equation. So that would be 3x minus y equals a positive 4. Okay, so 2 graphs. Anytime you have graphs, you're finding the slope and the y-intercept before you can find the equation. All right, number 3, we're given m, which is the slope. It's negative 1/2. And the y-intercept is 6. So that's your b. If we know m and b, we're just going to plug it into your slope-intercept form. But notice it wants it in standard, so once we get it in that form, we will have to change it to standard. Okay, so I'm going to start out by plugging it into this form. So that would be y equals negative 1/2 x plus 6. And we want it in standard form. So I'm going to move my x to the same side as the y. So I'm going to add 1/2 x. So you can go with 1/2 x plus y equals 6. Now, anytime you're plugging into or you're wanting it in standard form, you need to check your a. So notice a is a positive 1/2. So it is a positive, but it's a fraction. It needs to be a whole number, an integer. Okay, so to get rid of a fraction, you're going to multiply the entire equation by whatever that denominator is of that fraction. So notice the denominator is 2. So I'm going to multiply the entire equation by 2. So 2 times 1/2 x is just 1x plus 2y. We're going to multiply the 2 by also that 6. So that would equal 12. So x plus 2y equals 12. When you're in standard form, if you want to check to make sure that you did your standard form correctly, you can solve for y and it should end up giving you back that slope-intercept form. So you can check that. Okay, number 4, we're given the slope, which is m, would be 1/3, and then we're given a point. So 4, 2 passes through the point 4, 2. We want it in slope-intercept form. All right, so anytime you have a point and slope, you're going to use the slope formula, which we've been looking at. So slope formula, y minus y over x minus x. And I'm going to plug into that form, or that formula. So the m is 1/3. When you're plugging it into your slope formula, that first y and that first x needs to stay as x and y. So I'm going to rewrite that as y, and then this is your point that's given. So y minus the y value of our point, which is 2, divided by x minus the x value of your point, which is 4. So once we have that, that's called a proportion, two ratios that are equal. To solve a proportion, you're going to cross multiply. So when I cross multiply here, I would have 1 times x minus 4. Anything times 1 is just itself, so x minus 4. And then this side, I'm doing 3 times y minus 2. You either need to go ahead and distribute the 3 to both, or write it as 3 parentheses y minus 2. But make sure that you're multiplying that 3 times the y and that negative 2. So when I distribute that, that would be 3y minus 6. Looking back at the problem, we wanted it in slope-intercept form, so we want to get y by itself. So next step would be to add 6. So that would be x plus 2 equals 3y. And then we're dividing every term by 3. Now, notice right here that we don't have a number in front of x. That is a 1. So that would be 1/3 x plus, leave that as 2/3 equals y. So in slope-intercept form, so that would be our answer there. Okay, so number 5. It says the slope is undefined. When you have slope that's undefined, which means no slope, you will always have a vertical line. It passes through the point 2, 4, and we want it in standard form. So if we have the point, I'm just going to do a little graph here. If we have the point 2, 4, and we know the slope is undefined, which means it's a vertical line and it has to cross through that point, notice that vertical line will cross through the x-axis at +2. So that would be your equation. Remember we talked about that on Friday, that if we have an undefined slope or no slope, our equation is always x equals wherever it crosses the x-axis. You don't have to draw this graph. All you would have to do is look at that x value in that point, because you know that that vertical line is going to cross through that point. Okay, so x equals 2 would be your equation. All right, so then looking at 6. Slope is 1/2, so m is 1/2. Your x-intercept is negative 16. That is not the b. You need to change that to an ordered pair because we don't know the b. That's the x-intercept, not y-intercept. So x-intercept's negative 16, so that ordered pair would be negative 16, 0. So if you have a point and slope, we're going to plug into the slope formula. And so plugging in, m is 1/2, y minus the y value of your point, which is 0, over x minus your x value, which is negative 16. Remember, whenever you're subtracting a negative, that will make it plus there. And then we will need to cross multiply like we did on the other example. So when we cross multiply, 1 times x plus 16 would be x plus 16. And then notice we have 2 times y minus 0. That minus 0 there doesn't matter, so that would just be a 2y. And we wanted this one in slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. So next step would be to get rid of the 2. So I'm going to divide every term by 2. So y would equal 1/2 x plus 8. So pay close attention to what you're given. We were given the x-intercept, not the y-intercept. So that's not your b there. Okay, so notice on 7 and 8, we're given 2 points. Okay, if you were doing it algebraically, you would have to find the slope of those 2 points. Then you would use that slope and one of those 2 points to plug into the slope formula like we just did. Okay, there's an easier way of doing this. Anytime you're given 2 points and you're trying to find the equation of the line, you can use the calculator. You're going to go to Stat, Edit, turn on your calculator. If you're clearing out your list, make sure you go up to the top and then press clear. Up to the top, press clear. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to make your order pairs, turn those into your table. So the x values will go in the left side, and then your y values will go in the right side. So this will be your L1, and this will be your L2. Okay, so we're going to type those in. So stat edit, L1 needs to be your x, L2 needs to be your y. So that would be -2, -4, 5, -1. Make sure your calculator's doing all the work for you, so make sure that you are checking to make sure that you have those numbers entered in correctly. Okay, so once we have entered those in, you're going to go back to Stat, go over to Calc. Stat, Calc, and you're going to choose number 4, which is linear. Press Enter, and then notice that it gives you your m and your b. So we wanted it in slope-intercept form. So y would equal 3x plus 11. So anytime you're given 2 points, to find your linear equation, plug it in to Stat Edit in your calculator, and then you should be able to find that equation. Okay, so notice on 8, where we have 2 points, so we're going to do the same thing. Stat, edit, -3, 7, 5, 5. Notice the y values are exactly the same. Stat, Calc, 4. Notice your slope is 0. Okay? So y would equal, we're not going to write 0x, there's just not an x there, so y equals 5. So make sure when you're just given 2 points, pay close attention to your x's and y values. Notice that your y values are exactly the same. In order for the line to go through both points, it's going to have to be a horizontal line, okay, which means 0 slope. So if your y values are the same, you should be able to recognize that, and that's your equation. If your x values are the same thing. It would be x equals whatever those 2 x values are. Okay, so number 9, we're going to find the equation that is parallel to 3x minus 4y equals 8, and it passes through the point 5, negative 3. We want it in standard form. Lord, it's gonna mess up. Okay, so remember when we talked about parallel lines? Parallel lines, remember, have the same slope. So first thing we would need to do is find the slope of this equation, and we would know that that slope will be the same as our new slope. So writing your equation down, we're going to get y by itself, so that way we can find the slope. So subtract 3x. Everything about the negative 4. So y would equal a positive 3 over 4x. Because those negatives, negative divided by negative is a positive. And then 8 divided by negative 4 is a negative 2. So all we care about is looking at the slope. So slope would be 3 over 4. We know if this line is parallel to our new one, that those slopes are going to be exactly the same. So we're going to use this slope, and we're going to use this point that we were given to find the equation. We're going to use the slope formula. M is going to be 3 over 4. Remember the first y we rewrite, minus your y value of your point, which is going to be a negative 3. We'll end up making that plus. X minus your x value of your point, which is 5. Okay, so once we plug it into the slope formula, we're going to cross multiply. You can either distribute now or wait. So that would be 4y plus 12 if you go ahead and multiply 4 times the y plus 3. And then 3 times x, 3x. 3 times the negative 5, negative 15. So make sure you multiply that by both of those terms. Okay, we want it in standard form. So notice we have a y here and an x here. We want both of those on the same side, and then we want the number on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 3x. I'm going to write my x term first. And then notice we have an x and a y, but then we still have a number here. We need to move that over to the other side. Okay, so now we have x and y and then the number on the other side. Remember, we need to pay close attention in our standard form. A has to be a positive integer. So notice it's negative, but it is a whole number. So all we need to change is that negative. So I'm going to multiply the entire equation by a negative 1, so that way it makes that negative 3x positive 3x. And then that would be minus 4y equals a positive 27. And there would be our standard equation. Okay, so looking at 10, this time it's perpendicular. Notice that's the same equation. So the slope we already found, it was 3 over 4. But remember, perpendicular have negative reciprocal slopes. So my new slope, I will change the sign of the original, so that would become negative, and flip, take the reciprocal, so that would be 4 over 3. So there would be my new slope. It passes through this point, 3, negative 1. we want it in slope-intercept form. So if you're given slope or you know slope and a point, we're going to use the slope formula. So that would be -4/3 equals y minus the y value of your point, which is -11, x minus the x value of your point, which is 3. Once we get to this point, we're cross-multiplying. So that would be 3y plus 33. Make sure to distribute that 3 to both terms. And then that would give us -4x plus 12. Make sure to distribute that -4 to the x minus 3. Okay, so we want it in slope-intercept form, which means y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 33, both sides. And then we'll divide by 3, by everything. So y would equal -4/3x minus 7. Remember that your m, which is your slope, can be a fraction. It's just whenever you're in standard form, that's when you need to pay close attention to your a. Okay, next part, we're given a table. Anytime you're given a table, you're going to use the calculator how we did on the other, number 7 and 8. Okay, so if you're given points or if you're given a table, you're going to plug it in. Okay, so stat edit, and then stat calc number 4. I'm going to go to stat edit. My x values, I'm going to type in L1. My y values in L2. So I have 0, 6, 12, 18, 24. And then L2 are my y values, -2, 0, 2, 4, and 6. All right, so make sure you check your values once you've entered them in and make sure that you entered them in correctly. Okay, so from there, you're doing stat, calc, and then linear is number 4. Press enter. Now, notice this time that we got a decimal, but we need it to be fraction. Okay, so 0.3 repeating is 1/3 in fraction. Your B is your y-intercept, which would be -2, so -2 there. Okay, so that is slope-intercept form. Notice it wants it in standard form, which means x and y need to be on the same side of the equation. So my next step would be to subtract 1/3 x. Write your x term first, -1/3 x plus y equals a -2. Okay, so remember, once we are in standard form, we need to check our a. It's negative and a fraction. So we need to get rid of the negative and the fraction. So remember, to get rid of the fraction, we multiply by the denominator. To get rid of the negative, we multiply by negative. So we should be multiplying the entire equation by -3. You can do that all in one step. So when we distribute, that's going to be a positive 1x minus 3y equals a positive 6. Make sure to distribute it all the way through. Okay. All right, number 12 is very similar. We're going to plug it in, find your equation, except once you get it in slope intercept from your calculator, that would just be your answer. So we're going to skip over